He said he would come back. That was the last lie she believed. The morning he left, the sky was soft and golden, too peaceful for a goodbye that would destroy everything. She stood outside their small home, holding their child close, watching him place his suitcase in the back of an old truck. "Just a few months," he said, forcing a smile. "I'll earn enough, and we'll finally live better." She nodded. Because that's what wives do. They trust. They wait. They believe. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. At first, he called every night. Then every few days. Then, silence. No calls. No money. No answers. Just a phone that never rang again. One night, unable to sleep, she borrowed a neighbor's phone and searched his name. What she found stopped her heart. A photo. Him. Smiling. Standing beside another woman. Wearing a wedding ring she had never seen before. Her hands began to shake. Her breath caught in her chest. Because in that moment, she realized the truth. He didn't forget them. He replaced them. And somewhere far away, he was building a new life. On the ruins of the one he left behind. She didn't cry. Not at first. The phone slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a soft thud, but she didn't even notice. Her eyes stayed locked on that picture. Him, smiling. Happy. Like the life he left behind never existed. Like she never existed. Her chest tightened slowly. Not like a sudden pain. But something deeper. Something heavier. The kind that doesn't break you instantly. It crushes you slowly. "Mom?" Her child's voice came from behind. Soft. Innocent. Unaware. She quickly wiped her eyes and turned around, forcing a smile that didn't reach her face. "It's nothing," she said. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. That night, she called him. Once. Twice. 10 times. Each call went unanswered. No message. No explanation. Just silence. And sometimes, silence tells the truth louder than words ever can. The next morning, she checked again. The photo was still there. Along with more. Different places. Different moments. A different life. His new life. And not once. Not once. Did it include her? Or their child? Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the phone. Because now, there was no confusion left. No doubt. No hope. Just reality. Cold. Clear. Unforgiving. He wasn't coming back. Not in a few months. Not ever. And for the first time since he left, she didn't feel like she was waiting anymore. She felt like she had been abandoned. Completely. But the hardest part wasn't losing him. It was looking at her child. And realizing she had to become everything he failed to be. The house felt different the next morning. Not quieter. Not emptier. Just clearer. Like something had finally been removed. The illusion. The waiting. The hope that kept her stuck in the same place for months. She stood in the kitchen, staring at the small table where they used to sit together. 3 plates. 3 voices. 3 lives. Now, only 2. And one of them had stopped showing up a long time ago. "Mom, is Dad coming back today?" her child asked softly. That question. It came every few days. But today felt different. Because today, she had an answer. A real one. She turned slowly, kneeling down to meet her child's eyes. There was a moment. A small, painful moment. Where she almost lied again. Said soon. Said maybe. Said anything to protect that innocent hope. But she didn't. Not this time. She gently held her child's hands. And forced the words out. "No," she said quietly. Her child blinked. Confused. "Why?" came the next question. Simple. Honest. And impossible to answer fully. She took a slow breath. Because sometimes, she paused, people leave, and they don't come back. Her child didn't cry. Didn't fully understand. Just nodded slowly. But she did. She understood everything. And that made it harder. Because now, she wasn't just dealing with her own pain. She was carrying someone else's too. That realization settled heavily in her chest. But instead of breaking her, it changed something. shifted something. Because for the first time, she wasn't thinking about him. She wasn't thinking about what he did, or why. She was thinking about what came next. About survival. About stability. About building something from nothing. Her eyes moved around the small house again. The worn walls. The quiet corners. The life that suddenly felt too fragile. And in that moment, she made a decision. Not emotional. Not impulsive. But necessary. She wasn't going to wait anymore. She wasn't going to hope anymore. She wasn't going to depend on someone who had already chosen to leave. From today, everything would change. Not because she wanted it to, but because it had to. She stood up slowly, looked down at her child, then toward the door. Because sometimes, the moment you stop waiting is the moment your real story begins. The decision felt heavy, but also freeing. For months, she had been standing still, waiting for a call, a message, a sign that he still remembered them. Now, there was nothing left to wait for. And strangely, that made things clearer. She stood by the window, watching people pass by outside. Everyone moving. Everyone going somewhere. While she had been stuck in the same place. Not anymore. Get ready, she said softly to her child. We are going out. Her child looked surprised. Where? She paused, then answered honestly. I don't know yet. But that was the truth. Because this wasn't about destination. It was about movement. The streets felt different that day. Not kinder. Not easier. Just real. She held her child's hand tightly as they walked past small shops, cafes, and busy sidewalks. People rushed past them without looking. Just like always. But this time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt determined. Her eyes scanned every place carefully. Signs. Open doors. Opportunities. Even the smallest ones. Finally, she stopped in front of a small diner. Nothing special. Simple. Affordable. But there was a sign on the door. Help wanted. Her heart beat faster. Not from fear. From possibility. She took a deep breath. Then stepped inside. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Warm. Comforting. A sharp contrast to everything she had been feeling. A woman stood behind the counter. Older. Tired. But observant. Can I help you? She asked. Her voice wasn't unkind. Just direct. She hesitated for a second. Then forced herself to speak. I saw the sign outside. I'm looking for work. The woman looked at her carefully. From her worn clothes. To the child holding her hand. Then back to her face. Do you have experience? She asked. A simple question. But one that felt heavier than it should. Because experience was something life had given her. But not something she could easily explain. I can learn, she replied quietly. I just need a chance. Silence filled the space for a moment. The kind that decides everything. Then the woman sighed softly. Everyone says that, she muttered. Her heart sank slightly. Because she had heard that tone before. Rejection. But then, can you start today? The woman added. Everything stopped. For a second. She wasn't sure she heard correctly. Yes, she said quickly. Too quickly. But she didn't care. Yes, I can. The woman nodded toward the back. Kitchen. It's not easy work. That didn't scare her. Nothing scared her anymore. Because she had already faced something worse. Being left behind. Later that day, she stood in the small kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hands moving quickly. Washing. Cleaning. Learning. Working. Her child sat quietly in the corner, watching. Safe. Close. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel helpless. She felt in control. Tired. Exhausted. But alive. Because this wasn't charity. This wasn't waiting. This was her effort. Her decision. Her beginning. And as the hours passed, one thought stayed clear in her mind. She didn't need him anymore. Not to survive. Not to move forward. Not to build a life. Because step by step, she was already doing it on her own. And this time, no one could take that away from her. By the time the diner closed, her hands were shaking. Not from fear. From exhaustion. The kind that settles deep into your bones and refuses to leave. She wiped the last table slowly, her movements heavier now, slower than before. Every muscle in her body ached. But she didn't stop. Because stopping meant thinking. And thinking still hurt. First day's always the hardest, the older woman behind the counter said, glancing at her. She gave a small nod. No complaints. No excuses. Just quiet acceptance. Because she had already learned something important. This was her life now. And it wasn't going to be easy. Outside, the air had turned cold again. Her child held her hand tightly as they walked back. "Mom, are we okay now?" the small voice asked. She looked down. That question again. But this time, her answer was different. "We are getting there," she said softly. Not a promise. But not a lie either. The small house welcomed them with silence. Familiar. But no longer comforting. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it for a second. Just 1 second. To breathe. To feel. To release. But even that felt like too much. Because reality didn't wait. Bills didn't wait. Life didn't wait. She walked to the table. Picked up a small envelope. Unopened. Left behind days ago. Her fingers hesitated before tearing it open. Inside. A notice. Final warning. Payment overdue. Her chest tightened again. Not with surprise. But with pressure. More weight. More responsibility. More proof that she was completely on her own now. Her grip on the paper tightened slightly. But she didn't cry. Not this time. Because something inside her had already shifted. Pain was still there. But it no longer controlled her. She folded the paper carefully. Placed it back on the table. And looked around the small house again. Nothing had changed. But everything had. Because now, she wasn't waiting for someone to fix things. She was preparing to face them. Step by step. Day by day. No matter how hard it got. And as she turned off the lights and sat beside her child, one thought stayed clear in her mind. This wasn't the life she chose. But it was the life she would fight for. The next few days blurred together. Work. Home. Repeat. Each morning came too quickly. Each night ended too late. Her body ached constantly, but she kept moving. Because stopping wasn't an option. Not anymore. At the diner, the pace never slowed. Orders came in fast. Dishes piled up. Voices overlapped. And she kept up. Quietly. Relentlessly. Faster, the older woman said one afternoon. Not harsh, but firm. She nodded. Pushed harder. Moved quicker. Even when her hands trembled slightly. Even when her back burned with every step. Because this job wasn't just a job. It was survival. But survival has a cost. And slowly, it began to show. One evening, as she reached for a stack of plates, her hand slipped. A sharp crash echoed through the kitchen. Plates shattered across the floor. Silence followed instantly. Every eye turned toward her. Her breath caught. Her heart raced. I'm sorry, she said quickly, stepping back. The older woman walked over, looking at the broken pieces. Then at her. A long pause. Too long. "You need to be careful," she said finally. Her voice wasn't angry. But it wasn't soft either. "We can't afford mistakes like this." The words hit harder than the sound of breaking glass. Because she understood what they really meant. She wasn't secure here. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night, she walked home slower than usual. Her steps heavy. Her mind louder than ever. What if I lose this job? The thought repeated again and again. Like a quiet fear growing stronger. Because without this, everything else would fall apart. At home, she sat at the small table again. The same one. The same place where everything had changed days ago. The unpaid bill still lay there. Waiting. Unmoved. Unforgiving. Her child slept quietly nearby. Unaware of the pressure building around them. And for the first time since she made her decision to move forward, doubt crept in. Quiet. Dangerous. What if I'm not enough? That question. It didn't come with noise. It came with silence. The kind that fills every corner of your mind. Her hands tightened slightly into fists. Because this time, there was no one to blame. No one to wait for. No one to fix things. Just her. And the weight of everything. Tears slowly filled her eyes. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet. Tired. Real. But she didn't let them fall. Instead, she stood up slowly. Walked over to where her child was sleeping. And gently adjusted the blanket. Her fingers brushed softly against her child's hair. Warm. Safe. Trusting. That feeling. It grounded her instantly. Because suddenly, the doubt didn't matter as much. The fear didn't matter as much. The exhaustion didn't matter as much. Because this wasn't about her anymore. It never was. She took a deep breath. Wiped her eyes. And looked around the room again. Still small. Still fragile. Still uncertain. But now, there was something else there. Something stronger than fear. Something deeper than doubt. Determination. Because no matter how hard it got, no matter how close she came to breaking, she wasn't going to stop. She couldn't. Because giving up was the one thing she didn't have the right to do. Not anymore. The next morning felt heavier than the last. But something inside her had changed. Not completely. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough to keep going. At the diner, she moved more carefully. More focused. Every plate. Every step. Every motion. Controlled. Deliberate. She couldn't afford another mistake. Not now. Not when everything depended on this. Better, the older woman muttered as she passed by. It wasn't praise. But it wasn't rejection either. And right now, that was enough. Hours passed. The rush came and went. People filled the seats, then disappeared again. But she stayed steady. No broken plates. No hesitation. Just work. Until a man at one of the tables caught her attention. Well-dressed. Calm. Observing. Not eating much. Just watching. Not in a strange way. But in a quiet, thoughtful way. She ignored it at first. Focused on her tasks. But when she brought his coffee refill, he spoke. "You're new here," he said. His voice was calm. Measured. She nodded. "Yes." He looked at her for a moment. Then at the child sitting quietly in the corner. Then back at her. "You work hard," he added. Simple words. But they carried weight. She didn't know why. "Thank you," she replied softly. He didn't smile. Just nodded slightly, as if confirming something in his mind. Later that afternoon, when the diner had quieted down, the older woman called her over. "That man," she said, nodding toward the table. "He asked about you." Her heart skipped slightly. "About me?" she asked. The woman shrugged. Said he might need someone reliable. Reliable. That word stayed. Because it meant something. Something different. Something bigger than just surviving. She glanced toward the man again. He stood up slowly. Placed cash on the table. Then walked toward the door. But before leaving, he paused beside her. Just for a second. "If you ever want better work," he said quietly, "be ready when the chance comes." Then, he left. Just like that. No explanation. No details. Just words. And a possibility. She stood there for a moment. Confused. Curious. Cautious. Because life had already taught her something important. Not every opportunity is real. Not every offer is safe. But still, something about him felt different. Not rushed. Not pushy. Just certain. That night, as she walked home, her steps felt slightly lighter. Not because things had changed, but because something new had appeared. A door. Not open yet, but visible. And for the first time in days, she wasn't just thinking about survival. She was thinking about moving forward. About something more. At home, she looked at her child again. Still sleeping peacefully. Still trusting her completely. And quietly, she made another decision. Not out of desperation, but out of growth. If a better opportunity came, she wouldn't be afraid this time. She wouldn't hesitate, because she had already faced the worst and survived it. Sometimes, the turning point in life doesn't come with noise. It comes quietly, in a single moment, a single conversation, a single chance. And the only question that matters is, will you be ready when it arrives? 2 days passed. Then 3. Nothing happened. No call. No message. No sign of that man again. At first, she told herself it didn't matter. People say things all the time. Words come easy. Opportunities don't. So she kept working. Quietly. Steadily. Like nothing had changed. But deep down, she was waiting. Not like before. Not helpless. Not dependent. Just aware. Because now she knew. Something could change. On the 4th day, the diner was busier than usual. Orders stacked up quickly. Voices overlapped. Pressure filled the air. And in the middle of it all, she didn't notice him walk in. Not at first. It wasn't until the older woman nudged her slightly. "He's back," she whispered. Her heart skipped. She turned. And there he was. Same calm presence. Same sharp eyes. Watching again. But this time, it felt different. Intentional. She walked over slowly. Controlled. Careful not to show the sudden tension in her chest. "Coffee?" she asked. He nodded. But didn't look at the menu. Didn't look around. Just at her. "I meant what I said," he spoke quietly. No introduction. No small talk. Straight to the point. She stayed silent. Waiting. "If you're serious about working," he continued, "I have a position." Her grip on the coffee pot tightened slightly. "What kind of position?" she asked. Cautious. Because life had taught her. Details matter. Office cleaning. Evening shift. Better pay, he said. Simple. Clear. No tricks in his tone. No hidden pressure. Just information. "Why me?" she asked. That question came naturally now. Because she had learned. Nothing comes without a reason. He studied her for a moment. Then answered calmly. "Because you didn't quit when things got hard." That hit differently. Because he wasn't guessing. He had seen it. Observed it. Understood it. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Just heavy with decision. Because this wasn't just about a job. It was about change. Risk. Moving forward. Leaving something behind. "I need an answer today," he added. No pressure. Just reality. That made it harder. Because time forces truth. She glanced around the diner. The place that gave her a start. A chance. A way to survive. Then she looked toward her child. Sitting quietly. Watching her. Trusting her. And suddenly, the answer became clear. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. "I'll take it," she said. Her voice steady. No hesitation. This time, she chose forward. The man nodded once. "Be ready tomorrow evening," he said. Then turned and walked out. Just like before. Simple. Direct. Gone. She stood there for a moment. Heart still racing. Because something had just shifted again. Another step. Another chance. Another door opening. And as she returned to work, one thought stayed clear in her mind. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was moving. Slowly. Carefully. But forward. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. The next evening came faster than expected. All day, her mind stayed restless. Not from fear. From responsibility. Because this wasn't just another day. This was change. Real change. She arrived early. 10 minutes before the time he had given. Not because she was nervous. Because she was ready. The building stood taller than anything she had worked in before. Clean glass walls. Bright lights. Professional. A different world. For a moment, she hesitated at the entrance. Because stepping inside meant something more than just starting a new job. It meant leaving something behind. The old version of herself. The one who waited. The one who depended. The one who doubted. She took a breath. Then stepped in. The man was already there, standing near the reception desk. Calm. Like always. "You're on time," he said. She nodded. Yes. No extra words. Because she didn't need them anymore. He showed her the basics. What to clean. Where to go. How things worked. Everything simple. Everything clear. But the difference was in the environment. Quiet halls. Organized rooms. Respect. No chaos. No shouting. No constant pressure. Just work. Hours passed quickly. Her movements steady. Her focus sharp. And for the first time, she didn't feel overwhelmed. She felt capable. Later, as she finished her shift, he approached again. "Good work," he said. 2 simple words. But they meant more than anything she had heard in days. "Thank you," she replied. But before she could leave, he added something else. "This isn't permanent," he said. Her heart paused slightly. But she stayed calm. "I know," she replied. Because she had learned. Nothing is guaranteed. But then, "It can be better," he continued. That made her look up. "Keep showing up like this, and it won't stay just cleaning." Her breath slowed. Because that was opportunity. Not just survival. Growth. He handed her a small envelope. Her pay. For one shift. She looked at it. Then at him. Then back at it. Because this was the first time she held money she earned. Without fear. Without uncertainty. Without waiting for someone else. Outside, the night felt different. Not cold. Not heavy. Just calm. She walked home with steady steps. The envelope held tightly in her hand. Not because of its value, but because of what it represented. Progress. When she reached home, her child ran to her, smiling, happy, safe. And in that moment, everything made sense. Every struggle, every tear, every step. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about building something real. Something stable. Something hers. And as she sat down that night, looking at the small space that once felt like a burden, she realized something important. It wasn't where she started that mattered. It was where she was going. And for the first time in a long time, she knew exactly where that was. Months passed. Not quickly. Not easily. But steadily. Each day looked similar. Work. Home. Repeat. But inside that routine, everything was changing. She no longer walked with hesitation. No longer looked down when passing others. No longer felt like she was surviving. She was living. Building. Moving forward. The cleaning job didn't stay the same. Just like he said. It became more. Small responsibilities at first. Helping organize. Assisting with basic tasks. Then slowly. A position inside the office. A desk. A schedule. Respect. Things she never imagined having before. And through it all, she never forgot where she started. The small house. The unpaid bills. The nights filled with fear. Because those moments didn't break her. They shape her. Her child had changed too. Stronger. Happier. Smiling more. No longer asking, "When is Dad coming back?" Because now, that question didn't matter anymore. One evening, as she walked home, she saw someone standing near the corner. Familiar. Too familiar. Her steps slowed. Her heart didn't race. Didn't break. Didn't react like before. Because she had already faced this moment in her mind. Many times. It was him. Older. Tired. Not the same man who once walked away with confidence. Now, he looked uncertain. Lost. "I came back," he said quietly. She looked at him. Calm. Composed. Different. "I see that," she replied. No anger. No emotion. Just truth. "I made a mistake," he added. His voice carried regret. Real regret. But it didn't move her. Not anymore. Because regret doesn't rebuild what was destroyed. He looked around. At the house. At her. At the life she had built. "You did all this alone?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." One word. But it carried everything. Silence followed. Heavy. But not painful. Just final. Can we try again? He asked. That question. Once would have broken her. Once would have made her hesitate. Once would have made her hope. But now, it did nothing. She took a small step back. Not out of fear. Out of clarity. No, she said calmly. His eyes widened slightly. Not expecting that answer. Not like this. You left, she continued. Not loud. Not emotional. Just honest. And I learned how to live without you. That truth settled between them. Unshakable. He lowered his gaze. Because there was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to fix. Nothing left to hold on to. She turned slowly. Walked toward the door. Then paused for a second. Not to reconsider. But to finish it properly. I don't hate you, she said quietly. But I don't need you either. That sentence ended everything. She stepped inside. Closed the door. And just like that, the past stayed outside. Where it belonged. Inside. Her child ran toward her again. Smiling. Safe. Her real world. Her real life. And as she looked around, at everything she had built, one truth became clear. He didn't destroy her life. He revealed her strength. And sometimes, the people who leave you behind are the reason you learn how to rise.